Hi. So I'll just follow the same format that I have been with everybody else. Is there something that you would want to say to introduce yourself apart from what I've already said?
Right, right. So maybe some people joined in later, so I can just maybe repeat. So, hi everyone, my name is Rashi. I'm a mental health worker. I work with Mind Piper. Mind Piper is an impact first mental health organization based in Delhi. What we do is make efforts to unpack mental health in such a way that it is more accessible to people, not only just in terms of reach, but also the concept and how it is being used. And I'm just kind of in a daze. I've just been hearing Preeti, Shivangi, and Jay, and I think so much of it has already been covered. But I just look forward to sharing a little bit of what my experience has been.
Okay. So we'll go on to the questions now, and trust me, you would have a lot to share from your own experience, apart from what the other panelists have very articulately presented. The one thing that obviously does come up a lot in conversations regarding mental health is when we talk about inclusive mental health care, what are the various facets which weigh in on this effort as a mental health practitioner yourself?
Mhm. So my first experience of reading about inclusivity has been in the boxed content at the end of our chapters, where we learn about other identities and everything that is other, everything that is not mainstream. So I think this really puts in a perspective of how the gaze has been towards inclusivity. It's a little appendix sort of thing. And there's also another way of looking at it, which is now evolved, which is the putting a light on the little social aspect of the bio-psychosocial model of mental health. So I happened to read some text by Erica Berman. She's a savage critical psychologist who says that it's only bio model of mental health, but इसे बस bio-psychosocial बोलते हैं ढकने के लिए. But insides, the treatment and how research happens and what things are getting favored, it's all predominantly only one form of this understanding. And she gives a very nice metaphor that it's almost like taking that vanilla ice cream and dipping it in chocolate sauce to tell you it's chocolate ice cream, but it's not. It's just one layer, and inside it's all still vanilla. So I really like that metaphor. All right, so after the gaze, I think I use it to often center the fact what Dr. Travis Heath talks about, that the field of mental health now does not need any more theories of social justice. It needs more practices of social justice. And I strongly believe inclusive mental health care is just one form of that. Because if we are not doing it, we are directly reinforcing systems that put pressure on people's identities. That means people are driven to believe what they are allowed to be, how the society sanctioned, how society sanctions them to believe just what Jay was talking about. And coming to the practice of inclusive mental health care, I think I was sharing it with you earlier also, how I was just sitting with the title of this program today, which is along the lines of mental health and the other. And how I've come to realize that there is no other in this dialogue apart from the mental health discourse itself, which somehow ends up performing the othering. So I'll give you an example. I was in my first year of my clinical training where I learned about a rather pejorative view of people in therapy, that people with higher abstraction perform better in therapy as compared to those who are having low abstraction, low levels of articulation. So ये कौन लोग हैं जिनकी low abstraction होती है? वो लोग हैं जिन्हें education मिल नहीं पाया. वो लोग हैं who are facing systemic injustice and have faced this oppressive trauma. And जब ये थ्योरी हम सुनते हैं, it almost hits somewhere. It almost makes you feel like कि उन लोगों की गलती है जो थेरेपी की भाषा नहीं समझ पाते. And in my training, I just felt like something is wrong with it, but only when I went into the practice, I understood why it's wrong. Because this language is itself alienating. And जो हम client को failure जैसा महसूस करा रहे हैं, I've firmly come to believe that clients can never fail in therapy. Only the therapeutic approach brought together by the therapist's characteristics or the school of therapy itself can do that. So those are some points that I feel we need to challenge, especially parts of what we are trained in, and also anything that the around the word empirical or evidence based becomes a red flag, because it is essentially a method to discredit जो भी traditional है, जो भी indigenous है, like what Shivangi was talking about right now, that spiritual practices in tarot card reading, somebody can actually just you know rub that off because it's not empirically validated by our own made up scientific processes. So if in the end, if there's any one question we can ask for some clarity around social inclusion, is that who benefits from making it exclusive, like just turning the gaze to the different side. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर कोई कह रहा है कि थेरेपी एक अच्छे से रूम में ही हो सकती है प्रिवेसी के साथ दो लोगों के साथ, who benefits from that conception? If somebody is saying that therapy should be a long drawn process with repeated sessions, who benefits from that? Because I have received some experience where therapy has happened in the waiting room of hospitals, where I am sitting and the client is sitting next to me. There are three people behind us sitting on the same waiting chair, but we know we can't access any other room. So that therapeutic conversation starts. It may not last for a long time. Sometimes it just lasts for 15-20 minutes. Sometimes people only come for one session and they never return. But who says and who benefits from saying that that is not therapeutic? So I guess what I'm saying is that inclusive mental health conversation starts from here, from this decolonization of these Western concepts, which we have also been training in and trying very hard to fit in the Indian context.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Rashi, for that. Now, just going forward and building up actually to what you ended with. As a mental health professional, how do you negotiate around socio-political context of clients that you might not personally understand or relate to? And this is coming from the decolonizing of mental health care and how regionally you negotiate with mental health while the practice and the discourse is largely still unrelated to the realities. So if you could elaborate.
Mm-hmm. So I was trained, we had these classes called socio-cultural context of the person, and it was not a boxed variety. It was a full class, like with full credits, and it was almost on multiculturalism. That as a therapist, you should be multicultural, but more that I am being exposed to different kinds of therapists and the narrative approach, for example, like it's asking for something beyond multicultural. Like it's not just asking you to be someone okay with diversity, but I think the question you're asking, that itself is so important right now to reflect. And I can tell you a little bit about what I used to do before. I think when we start our careers, like this is almost my fourth year into practice, so it's been a while since I post graduated, and in the beginning I had a lot of conviction that I'm going to understand all contexts and I'm going to try. And let me give you a little background. Like, so my home is in Patna, and my family has first degree relatives in US and also in our village. And we were in Patna, we were in like this middle position. And because of growing up in this family, I had to build this skill, this ability to form connections with both sets of people. And we spoke in Hindi only, but there was a difference, and I picked up that difference early on. And I have been exploring it, practicing it, and due to my conscious or unconscious affinity, I even got drawn to a workplace like Mind Piper, where I could recreate my home. So in a week, I have sessions with students who are from well-to-do colleges. I have sessions with people who can afford therapy at the rate it is. And I also work in community clinics, like I just talked about. And also, under a project with Center for Equity Studies, I have been working with people on the streets, people who are facing urban homelessness. So the question you're asking, it actually never occurred to me because I was always good at connecting with people. So it would set the relationship off. Like there was, people would also have this, like I'm just trying to create like this bare minimum for you, through which people would also always feel safe. So I thought, I am a multicultural therapist. I'm doing a good job. And then I think as I progressed, I began to notice that my clients are noticing my anxiety. There is a research that says babies soothe their mothers when the mother is anxious, and that tends to happen in therapy as well. So they realize that this one is trying to empathize, but probably does not know a lot about my context. So whether it would be my client who was differently abled, or one of my clients who comes from a middle income neighborhood in Delhi, who recognizes as a gay person, but his father brought him to therapy because he wanted me to do something about it. And whether it be the client who hails from a tier 2 city, not understanding their concerns around anxiety and OCD, or my client who's serving right now in the army, and is middle aged. So they all started educating me by themselves, context that I did not have information about. And only it's very recently that I've understood that somewhere my goal here was to care, कि मैं इतना अच्छा care करूं कि उस care में कोई फर्क ना हो. And that care, whether you come from any context, and I can uphold my, I felt that my quality of therapy is same and I've been doing a good job. And to some extent I think that's true, but it has taken me some time to understand that that is not the goal. Like, the goal is not to care so much that it is equal for all. The goal is to see the person's identity and to convey to the person, communicate, and tell them that I respect that I see what they've gone through, and that I honor them, that I will be educated about your lived experiences, and I will work against the dominant discourse that harms you, and tell me how to do better. Just what Preeti said, like, I've made notes, like, she hit the pulse so right when she called it sincere assurance. And when Jay was saying that it is our responsibility to be curious. So it has taken me some good amount of time, and I can't, once you see it, you can't unsee it. That how at one point I thought my goal is to not see the difference, to treat it as equal, to make sure that I am not making you feel like I'm noticing your identity,
Yeah.
because I'm not noticing it. I'm just trying to help your problem, whatever you've brought in therapy, be it a relationship issue. Like, I'm not noticing what your orientation is. I'm just noticing the issue. But that is somewhere not the goal, is what I've realized.
Thank you so much, Rashi. Very honestly, all this conversation was very overwhelming for me personally as well. Just trying to understand the context, and very honestly, I've never had such honest discussions with people who are accessing therapy and people who are providing therapy coming together on a single platform to talk about where is it that we lag and where is it that we are doing well to a certain extent. And it has been truly, truly
So, Sai,
interesting to
just
say the
on
least.
that, I'd like to say that sometimes this therapist character, like, it is of very much interest to me. Like, this character only comes in our way of genuinely connecting, like even genuinely connecting to other therapists or clients, or to, let's say, people like us. Uh,
Just a small announcement. Anybody who has questions, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A box. And we'll wait for 2-3 minutes in case if there are any questions, then the panelists can try to address it. And in the meanwhile, I think till we start getting any questions, if all the panelists could switch on their video and audio, and if there are any concluding remarks that you would like to make regarding how the discussion went forward today and what you felt, then that would be great as well. I think we can have a few seconds for each of you, maybe 2 lines. I'm sorry for being this teacher type, but we're running short on time.
so I'd just like to conclude what I was saying, because I just came out of a moment of clarity for me, that somehow this therapist character only comes in the way of our genuine connection. And I have been trying to create some tiny ruptures in my therapy sessions, and I just want to report it's working really well. Like, when all of a sudden I disclose more than what is sanctioned by my training, or if I, let's say, use humor to cause that connection, or when I'm just taking a different route to understanding your identity. So I just feel somehow we are often trained to be the therapist, but how to be ourselves in this unique setting that is therapy. So yeah, I'm very excited to see more of practitioners and clients, breaking the way therapy really works. That'll be really interesting for me.
I think I just, I'm reminded of a quote by Arundhati Roy, and it goes, something about how to respect strength but never power, and to, make it a responsibility to never forget the things that we see. And it just came up for me when Rashi was talking about, it's hard to unsee. It's so important to see. It really is, and I think, that's something that's really standing out to me. Um,
Preeti,
Yeah, I think I just want to say one line that I'd like to register is that experience itself is different from agreement with that experience and empathizing with it. So I think this is one very important thing we need to keep in mind.
Shivangi, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Any concluding remarks?
No.
No? Okay. So we have one question. Okay, finally.